live.
Yes. Hi there. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome. I'll share my screen and we can start the presentation. Unfortunately, we can't hear you and we can't see you, but we should probably get going. So, when we were discussing how to start our presentation, I actually suggested that I'll just share a bit about us and our team and what we do. And the only reason why I'm telling you this is because I love how Andy reacted. That is the most boring way to start a conference talk. So to avoid starting like that, we thought it would be a good idea to start with a little few questions, which I will publish as polls. Just give me a second. So the first question is, how much paper do you think an average European users use? And the second one is, do you think this figure is increasing or is it decreasing? On average, each year, everyone in Europe consumes about 125 kilograms of paper. That is £275 for those who didn't get the memo about the metric system. 26% of which is used for writing. Business paper usage is still increasing by 22% annually. And specific to K&H, there were 23.2 million pages printed each year, which if you were to put it next to each other sideways or lengthwise, it would span the distance between New York and Budapest. So considering the cost, both environmental and monetary, you can easily see why companies are moving or leaving paper behind, moving away from paper. Though there is another aspect to going digital, the process side. What I mean by that is that most companies strive to eradicate those physically manual processes, like a simple manual invoicing process done by hand. So pen and paper out and keyboards and ERP systems in. These two simple facts, that we want to get rid of paper and that we want to get rid of manual processes, these are true for the banking sector as well. The reason why this statement is important is because we can safely assume that we'll be sharing our digital world with documents for the near future. So they will not disappear in a matter of a few years. I think it's time to introduce myself. My name is Bálint Kulcsár, and in our presentation today, we'll be sharing our general approach to handling documents without our RPA. And we brought you two real-life robot processes that we as a team developed in the past years. And we'll be sharing our journey with you. But before we do that, I really need to lay down some foundations. I'm actually one of those mathematicians that strayed away from mathematics later on in life, but it was driven into me quite extensively that for anything to stand, you need to lay down your foundations. You need to define your terms. So I'll be doing that. When I say our journey, what I mean by our is the RPA team back at BCA and the RPA team of K&H, which is admittedly quite intertwined, but I mean that. I mean Tibor, Adam, István, Balázs, and all of the rest of the guys. So I wanted to make that profoundly clear so that you can see behind me in a sense. BCA, which is our side of the team, is centered in Budapest, and our market is the European one. We have been in the business of delivering IT solutions for 14 years now, and our primary customers are market-leading large corporations. RPA has been in our repertoire for 4 to 5 years, and since we believe that whatever we do should be done professionally and to the highest quality possible, that is why we chose UiPath, and that is how we became UiPath Core Partners as well. Just go back. So we are one of the leading RPA solution providers in our region, And I think what is instrumental to our success is that we automate fully and through the lens of a business analyst. We seek to understand the process that is being automated. We seek to optimize the process. We seek to modify the process in a way that makes it more suitable for our PA. And then we implement the solution and support it. So it is this end-to-end nature of our approach that really sets us apart. And this end-to-end nature really finds its way into other parts of our business as well. RPA is just one of the technologies that we as BCA utilize to satisfy our customers. Our RPA team is really just one team of many teams, in a sense, within our company. So in short, we deliver end-to-end IT solutions. I think that is enough of a background for now. You have a rough idea of who we are, what we do, and I believe, at least I've tried to, but I gave you a reason why handling documents is important for the next couple of years, at least. So let's start with that. Let's talk about documents first. What makes it actually challenging to work with documents? Again, with the foundations. There are three types of documents: structured, semi-structured, and non-structured. A structured document has a fixed form. You know exactly where everything should go: your name, your date of birth, everything. Or on the processing side, you know exactly where everything should be: your name, your date of birth, everything. So like those council documents that we all had to deal with at some point in our life, and I'm sure we all love and cherish. The format is fixed. When the council receives your filled out form, they know exactly where everything should be: your name, your date of birth, all the data points, and that's a structured document. A semi-structured document would be an invoice. It isn't as fixed as receiving a form, or you know that the amount, the billing date, the billing address, all of those should be on the document somewhere. All invoices are alike, but they're not the same. And finally, you have non-structured documents. These are legal texts, contracts, sales orders, free text, in general, all those sort of things. So that is one aspect of a document, how structured it is. And once you have them on your computer, the other aspect is that digital quality, in a sense. A good way to think about what a generated document is that it's a document that never left the digital world. It was created on a computer, it was never printed, and hence no one had to scan it to digitize it. Once a document has been printed, using that document will always be more challenging. However, the quality of the scan, whether it is slightly sideways, low resolution, full of scribbling, etc., that really matters. And those, being either generated or scanned, make up the second aspect that determine how challenging it is to handle a document. Now that we know how documents will look from the robot's perspective, how does the process of document handling work? How does the journey look like for a document? I would first like you to imagine that you're given 300 documents and you know nothing about them. And your task is to look through them and collect data from them and store them in Excel. That's a marvelous task that would drive most of us insane in less than 10 minutes, but let's just imagine that. The very first step, or step 0, is that you have to know what you're looking for in these documents. Are you looking for names in these documents, or do you want to get the invoice numbers, or the amount there, contract numbers, or all three of those? Whoever is giving you this task will need to specify what they want you to collect. And when we are using robot, our first step is to specify what we'll need to look for. Now imagine that you have these 300 documents sitting on your desk, but some are printed on white paper with white ink. Profoundly useful, isn't it? So you can read half of them, but the other half, well, there is no chance. So you will have to do something to those paper copies before you can do anything with them. Your white ink paper copies are basically the scanned documents for robots. They can't see anything with them. They need to digitize them first before they can handle them at all. That is where OCR, optical image recognition, comes into play. If we had a tool to turn these white paper white ink copies into white paper black ink copies for ourselves, in this hypothetical scenario, well, that's what OCR would be. However, OCR isn't perfect. It literally traverses the page and tries to figure out what each of those lines and collections of lines represent. But a 7 can look an awful lot like a 1 sometimes. So it is the best guess. The better the guess, the better the OCR engine. Carrying on, you still have 300 documents sitting on your desk, but at least you can read all of them. Before you can retrieve the information, it is a good idea to categorize them. We'll have invoices, forms, contracts, and all the rest. So the question is, how would you categorize them? I mean, I understand that we can look at them and know, but if you had to write it down, how would you categorize them? We will talk about the options that we have in a little bit more detail when we dig into this in our case studies. Now your 300 documents are down to 50. 250 documents were invoices, forms, or contracts, and it's time to retrieve some information from these. You can look at a document and spot where the name is or where the invoice number is, but again, if you had to write down a rule, how would you identify these info points? How would that look? Well, we'll look into this later as well. So now you're done. You're at the final step. We just have to utilize the data and just hand our Excel file over. We have actually brought you 2 processes to demonstrate these differences. The payment proposal validation process in SAP. The majority of the documents were scanned, but we also had generated ones, and they were all basically semi-structured. And a mortgage categorization process where we had an even split between scanned and processed. And most of them were semi-structured at best, but most of them were unstructured. Andy, will you please explain the process in a bit more detail? Then I'll expand on the technicalities after.
Sure. So my name is Angi, and I work for K&H Bank. I have brought you a short movie that will show you an invoice checking process at K&H Shared Services. So that is our finance department. We have selected this process because it was a high volume process, 500-600 invoices on a daily basis, in peak periods even much higher. And also our colleagues really disliked this part of their daily routine. They not only disliked this part, but they often made mistakes during this task. We also found this process as quite standard and rule-based because our colleagues checked the same data on each invoice. Who should get the money, so the account number, what money, currency type, how much money. So these were the key data that they were looking for. Let's see the process on the video. You will see both processes, the one that we had before, and in parallel, the one that we had after the robot was implemented. So it's a payment proposal validation in SAP. Before, our colleagues started their day with printing all payments. So they set the parameters and then they walked over to the printer and printed the approval list. This list had to be checked against the printed invoices. So you can see on the left, the lady is checking all the invoices. There is a much bigger pile on her left side. That was her daily routine every morning. Then another colleague had to check the work of the previous colleague. And then the release payment, they released the payment and they printed it out and archived everything. In the meantime, on the right side, you can see the robot was working during the night and checks all the scanned invoices. So the colleagues in the morning only needed to have a look at the discrepancies that the robot has found. You may also ask why we haven't started reading the data right from the first moment when the invoices were scanned. Of course, we have thought about this, but we knew that the current SAP system will be replaced by SAP HANA, actually next year. So we didn't want to do an end-to-end process redesign at this point. What we wanted was something fast and a quick solution for this interim period. From the moment the idea popped up, it took us 3 months to implement the robot. Basically, from the beginning, the bot was running a bit too fast, so we learned a lot. We had to teach the robot to adjust to the speed of SAP. And you can see the benefits here. I think the most important one, what are those 3 colleagues are doing now? They are doing more contacts with our partners, reconciliating the invoices with suppliers. So they do much more sophisticated and much happier work. Okay. I think we are finished with the movie. And now, Bálint, let's go deeper in the technical details. Okay. We can't hear you.
I just muted myself so that I don't talk into yours. So this is the perfect process to focus on the digitization step from our little process flow from before, top right corner. So the white paper, white ink issue, if that rings a bell, the problem of turning a document into readable format. Choosing a technical solution for an issue like this is a multifaceted problem. One size does not fit all. I'll share the general approach and I'll link it with the case study that we brought so that there is something tangible. Since 80% of the input for this process was scanned, that was the first thing that the team had to take a look at. Where do these documents come from? The issue was that these documents weren't scanned centrally. They were scanned on different machines, equipped with different OCR engines, Kovacs, Xerox, if any at all. And they were scanned by different teams, and not all of those teams could utilize the OCR engines of the scanners. So there was no uniformity. We couldn't change the scanning process, as Angie said, because SAP HANA was 2 to 3 years away. Thus, we knew that the robot would have to digitalize for itself. Now, with the next 3 points, the functionality, performance, and cost bit, the question of quality. So, regardless of where digitalization occurs, there are a few general factors that we can use to set these OCR engines apart. The question of quality and functionality. So, if I feed a bunch of documents to multiple OCR engines, which one will produce the best results? By results, I mean which one is the most successful at reproducing what is on the picture of the scanned document. The less it will mistake a character for another one, the better. And the more it can preserve the format of the document, the better. Which leads into the second part, which is the question of speed. How long does it take to digitize a page? 10 seconds? 30? These seconds can seriously add up. Even with a few dozen documents. Finally, the operational or implementational question. So can it be easily implemented? Specific to UiPath, some engines are native to UiPath. Implementing those is less of a problem. So as I said, UiPath has its own OCR engines, and you have the free ones. Those are the ones that come pre-packaged with UiPath. Microsoft Tesseract, which is the Google one, and more recently OmniPage, and you have paid ones as well. Abby Fine Reader would be an example of With this example, we started with Microsoft, one of the free ones. And in our experience, Microsoft actually tends to be stronger with numbers and tesseracted text. So since we were working with numbers predominantly, we used Microsoft. In general, there are parameters that you can play with, which can vastly increase the success rate of these OCR engines. Knowing the language of the document will massively improve the quality of the outcome. But you can also play with whether you wish to magnify the picture by some degree. So if the picture is magnified by a factor of 2, digitizing will take longer. Let's say from 30 seconds it will increase to 60, but the outcome can improve massively. Well, if you magnify by a factor of 3, then digitization will take about 5 minutes, and the outcome will not improve that much. You can also choose to invert the colors, dark background, light text, and so on and so forth. On top of this, you actually don't have to choose one engine or one self settings. You can use these engines in parallel, or one engine the different settings in parallel. Time-wise, by the time the longest one finishes, the rest will finish too. You can actually try different languages, different magnification rates, and others. So in this case, we used 3 different settings working in parallel for the same engines. That produced the best result. Moving to the internal aspects that we had to weigh, well, the question of what is available to us in terms of licenses and competence, that's a good question to ask. There are always financial boundaries that we have to abide by. Some of these technologies are expensive, others are less so. The question of time frame is a good question to ask. How long will we need this solution for? Do we need it for 1 or 2 years? Because there will be a large system overhaul. Because that was the case with KNH, and since the introduction of SAP HANA was only 2 to 3 years away, whatever we did or would have done would have been rendered obsolete. So we implemented the solution. It was working with a relatively high success rate, but the OCR engine had to be improved to increase that success rate. Hence, we switched to ABI. And finally, once COVID hit, KNH had to reorganize itself, as I'm sure most of us had to. At the end of the day, we are sitting on an online conference. So they centralized the scanning, and hence everything is digitized as soon as it is scanned. No change was required to the robot. The only thing that we noticed is that the success rate has decreased a bit. The Xerox engine wasn't as strong as Abi's OCR engine. We could handle 3/4 of the documents, and with a minor investment into another OCR engine, this was increased to 90–95%. But that is all the time that we have for digitalization for now. And setting horizon categorization, we can safely say that categorization wasn't an issue for this process. We had a set of keywords that separated our documents into invoices, memos, processes, and we had and reimbursements. If the document or the metadata belonging to the document included the word invoice, it was handled as an invoice, and the rest would be similar. And with that, Angie, could you please share a bit about the second process as well?
Yeah. So our second case is a very recent one. We just launched a bond in January. The volume was quite high here too. Our colleagues in the collection department, basically lawyers, received approximately 100 mails from court, land registry, notary, bailiffs, tax administration authorities on a daily basis. But here, what even counted much more was the time, because these letters had to be answered or fulfilled within a very strict official deadline. And we sometimes miss these deadlines. So these documents arrived either electronically or via normal post. And our lawyers had to read these documents and then find the relevant customer in our systems, and then figure out the specific case and assign the specific task to the relevant colleagues. Now, our robot does this instead of them very precisely, very fast, 3 times faster. And actually, this implementation took us only 2 months. And what I'm happy for the most, that our lawyers are now really working as full-time lawyers. So, Bálint, could you please tell us a bit more about the capabilities of this fantastic robot?
Sure. So we had 18,000 legal documents annually. It was roughly an even split between generated and scanned documents, and 5 different types of documents. Most of them were not structured. Digitization issues were largely similar to the previous one, so I'll just save you from repeating myself. So let's skip that. Categorization again. Well, it wasn't that interesting either. We knew what type of these legal documents were using a similar approach, plus also if we received it from the land registry, well, then it was a land registry document. If we received it from the court, it was a court document. So it wasn't as interesting, so we can skip that as well. But with that, we arrive at the crux of the problem. The challenge for this process was to extract the required information. So we'll focus on that. We'll focus on extraction. This will be UiPath specific again, but the general idea applies across the board. I think the approach can be categorized into 3 segments. I know there are 4 sections on the slide, but 2 of those are basically the same, so bear with me, please. If you know exactly where the data will be on the document, let's say top right corner, form extraction is your way. The word at the given position will be extracted. Effectively, the easiest way to think about this is that you are providing the robot with a template as a guide. The template will describe what information should be taken and where should it be retrieved from. Intelligent form extraction is, in many ways, is quite similar, but it is enhanced with the ability to read handwritten text, and hence it can handle signatures. But as you can see, form extraction understandably was out of the question. It just wasn't an option for these legal documents. They weren't structured enough. So naturally, we were left with 2 options: using machine learning based extraction or regex, or regular expression based extraction. You may actually choose to build your own machine learning model, or opt for using a pre-built one. This is quite technical and involved, and I'm in no way an expert on building machine learning models, but I'll try to explain it the best as I can. Imagine that you have a co-worker that has been working with invoices for 50 odd years. Let's call her Mrs. Invoice. If you stick an invoice under Mrs. Invoice's nose, she can immediately tell you where the name and the amount will be, just pointing away. So, oh yeah, the name is there, the billing date is there. So that is what a model-based machine learning algorithm would be for a robot. Someone that they can turn to when they need to extract something from a document. A superbly experienced co-worker. You can actually choose to outsource this task. Mrs. Invoice could be a talent hired from another company, and anytime you need her help, you would be paying for her time. But this means that you are paying for her experience, and since many people are in need of her expertise, she has a lot of it, and it is increasing day by day. Or you can choose to hire and train your own Mrs. Invoice yourself from the get-go. So, which is a bit more expensive at first, but you would not have to pay for her expertise on an on-demand basis. I admit this is a rather silly example, which explains on a high level how machine learning links up to RPA and the options that we have. You either have your own model, developed, trained, tested, retrained, tested, trained again, deployed, and continuously improved, or you can have someone else's and use it for a fee as a service. So if you choose to make your own, it will involve supervised and unsupervised learning. There is an inbuilt supervised training functionality in UiPath where you can train your machine learning extractor. It's a bit back and forth, so a robot will show you what it thinks is on the page and you validate it. You can also actually let your model train on its own. It would mean that it reinforces whatever it has learned on a larger batch of test data. Well, if you're talking about English invoices or English documents in general, we could have opted for using a pre-built machine learning model. It would have been a bit of an overkill, but these are available. I mean, one can obtain a license and use it on an on-demand sort of way. However, unsurprisingly, the market for Hungarian legal document machine learning models is a small one. It's as far as I'm aware, it's a non-existent one. So if we were to go down the machine learning path, we would have had to build a model for ourselves, which is a fantastic task, but it is quite expensive. So we naturally gravitated towards regex. Regex is a powerful tool for pattern recognition. The good thing with legal documents is that they are strictly legislated in what they must include and in what order. They have to follow a pattern to remain compliant. I mean, if anyone has worked with legal experts before, they will agree with me in saying that they know what they're doing when it comes to these documents. Because they respect the underlying pattern that is set by the legislation. So thus we sat down with these legal experts, and together we came up with a set of logical steps, identified all of the patterns, and created a way to automate everything that they've been doing. Now there is a document that anyone who can read will be able to follow and end up with the information that is required. Thus, we can see that this process was optimized and understood by business analysts, in this case us, who are adept at technology, and thus alongside the business, we could simplify the process to the point where with really simple techniques, we could achieve great results. And I'm really mindful of the time here, and I could talk hours about regex, but I'm not going to. So if you are interested in these, there is a workshop that we are putting on, and we can talk about them a whole lot more there. So I brought you a little visual example of a regular expression, just so you see what these are really. It is sped up, I admit. I wish I could work this fast. It would solve a lot of my problems. And with that, I would like to give the word to Angie, and she will give us a bit more background on KNH and then RPA and what lies ahead, and then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Bálint. So KNH Bank and Insurance is part of the KBC group. And as part of KBC, we want to be the reference, not only in our bank insurance model, customer centricity and social responsibility, but also in process automation. So KBC started about 2-3 years ago and established a central competency center for UiPath in Brno. Since then, we have more than 300 robots in UiPath across all entities, from Ireland to Bulgaria. We have received a lot of help from Brno. We have aligned ourselves to the KBC development framework, and Brno is providing us code validation to ensure that we are developing efficiently and safely. In the meantime, we also really needed support locally. We needed support for both our business analysts and also in scripting the more difficult cases, like the 2 cases you have seen. So basically, this is why locally we have partnered up with BCA, because they were the only UiPath partners in Hungary. So this lucky and well-working joint partnership brought us very nice results. On the next page, we can see, as of today, we have 35 bots live already. Last year, we had 32 bots. And in addition to that, last year, we started experimenting also with SharePoint Nintex workflows and even combining workflows with robots. And as a result of that, last year, we had 50 robots and workflows in production together. Now, they are bringing very nice results, so we set our ambitions very high. This year, we want to double this number and go for 100. Okay, but we will not stop here. After gaining experience in pure classical RPA cases and also in smart automation with OCR, combining robots with OCR, like the 2 cases we have shown you, we would like to go on and experience in end-to-end intelligent process automation, where we combine much more tools along the full process. We combine analytical tools, robots, workflows, chat functions, even artificial intelligence and machine learning. For example, our Czech colleagues in CSOB already implemented a similar robot solution that I have presented you in the second case. The only difference that robot reads all the bad news on the death of customers and then sorts out the case and even answers the letters. So basically that robot is able to completely take out human work with such a bad work, depressive work. So we will go and try to experiment these tools as well, because we really believe that RPA has significant potential to help increase process efficiency and boost productivity. And now, just before opening up for Q&A, let Bálint share with you his offer.
Yeah, just one final thought. So we thought that it would be great if we could give you something as well. So there is an offer of a free proof of concept, the lucky one. We'll get in contact with you and we'll build a robot in your environment, just to showcase what RPA is capable of. So if you are interested in entering this draw, please shoot me an email and let me know that you are interested. And also, if you're interested in how this works in practice, because we couldn't go into that much detail now, categorization, extraction, regex, and all of the rest, please join my colleagues for his workshop on the 15th of April. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and we will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Same on my side. No questions.
Okay.
So we'll be waiting around, I think.
Yes, I think there's a 20-second. We'll wait for a minute or so, and if there are no questions, I think, well then, thank you for your attention, and then we can wrap it up.
There is one question from Daniel.
In the chat? Or
yes.
Can you interact with Azure DevOps? Well, there are connectors for Azure. I mean, for example, for Azure 365, there's a connector. There are segments of Azure that UiPath can interact with. They have introduced the first of these functionalities in a year and a half or so, and it is getting to the point where, I mean, we are using it in an enterprise environment right now, but it's not the full functionality. Who's the team of RPA in Bank?
Yeah, that's the question to Mihai. Which team of RPA? RPA team of BCA or at KNH Bank or at KBC? Which one are you asking?
Roles headcount.
I see that there are 4 questions in Bank. Okay, roles and headcount. Okay, so in the bank, the way we have created, and it's very new, I mean, it's very unique even within KBC Group, that we do not have a central development team established. My team, customer, is the RPA Competency Center. We are helping all the delivery and even controlling it. So basically, we organize the training and qualification for the scripters. We help them conduct the testing. We ensure the documentation. We also monitor the production part, but basically within the bank, there are 3 or 4 super teams where there are 3 to 5 internal scripters working on supporting their business areas. And in addition to that, we also ask BCA. They are also part of this virtual RPA team in the bank. And for areas where there are no local scripters, they provide this offer. We also have a cooperation with Bruno and Bruno Varna. That's one team. That's the Global KBC Competency Center. As I mentioned already, they are doing the code validation. They do that for all RPA delivery within the group. But sometimes they also help us in maintaining these robots. It makes a lot of sense to actually hand it over to Varna because there are cheaper resources maintaining some of our robots. So it's quite complex. If you ask me, we have like 15, 20 developers together, including the external developers and the citizen developers within the company. That's basically in the bank.
Just to tag on to the roles, well, in general, you would have a COE, Center of Excellence, which is, you are looking at Angie, she is one of the members of the Center of Excellence for KNH. And quite standard process structure, so you have a project structure, you have a project manager, you have someone from the operational side, you have developers. In our case, we are the business analysts as well as the developers. And I think that is kind of the core. So I'm not sure if you were asking about the roles, but that's just one thought.
Yeah, and one thought on my side, because I know many companies go for central teams. I, as a head of RPA, also wanted to convince my management that we should go like that because it's very efficient. But to tell you the truth, having this spread in the organization is working quite well because there are many ideas. So all the organization came close to this tool. They understand the possibilities with RPA. And since they feel that it's their tool in hand, they have a much higher buy-in. So from change management perspective, I think it's good to start like this. And then centralize where it's already working as a machine quite well. Centralize or even use an offshore cheaper solution for maintaining robots. With the IPA solutions, we'll definitely work also together with the Bruno Competency Center because they have the tools that we would like to use and expand. So, but for basic RPA, I think it's a valuable solution that it's spread and in a virtual team somehow centralized.
All right.
Was that clear?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think I gave headcount numbers as well.
So I think we still got a minute and a half. So if anyone
okay, shoot another question.
Yes, but that should be the last one probably.
The last one.
All right.
Well, no. Okay, I marked these as answered ones. I think we answered these.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dan. And enjoy the rest of the day on the conference.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Itt vagy, Bálint?